Now, back to the Voice, and as you know, it'll be unlikely for any referendum to succeed unless there is bipartisan support. The opposition has kept an open mind, and as I mentioned, they did all the work to design a form of a voice that could be legislated back in their last term. The Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, Julian Leeser, travelled with the Prime Minister to the Garma Festival on the weekend. Leeser has long been an advocate for the Voice, but he wasn't the Shadow Minister then. He's back in Canberra now, and I asked him earlier, now that the government has outlined the proposed constitutional change, can the coalition back it?
Chris, thanks for having me. I've long been interested in this issue, you're right, and I've been involved in it. And it was good to see the government put forward a question and a proposed amendment that it's got, and we'll be looking at it, as will all Australians. But there's some big details that the government hasn't let us in on yet, and we want to hear from them. We want to understand how the voice bodies will work. Who will serve on them? How will they be chosen? What will their powers be? And how will they make lives of people in Indigenous communities better and address the issues that face them, whether it's domestic and family violence, whether it's poor education outcomes and poor employment outcomes, whether it's poor health outcomes. They're the issues that we want to hear about.
They're very important points, but and I'll come to them in more detail in a moment. But first up, can you live with that those suggested amendment words, the clausing, the phrasing to the Constitution? Is that acceptable to you?
Well, we've only just seen them at the weekend. I'll be talking to my colleagues about them. I'll be listening to legal experts. And in my role as Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, obviously listening to Indigenous Australians in their views on them. And so putting some words out there is a good start. It enables you to have a debate, it enables you to look at these issues and so on. But the words are just the words in the Constitution that enable the body. We want to understand how the body works, because you can't have a proper debate and discussion about this unless you've got the details about how the body itself will work.
Yeah, well, there's important stuff to talk about there. I want to hold up this document here that you'll be very familiar with. It was the work of your own government. This is the Indigenous Voice co-design process, tabled about a year ago, as I said, under the auspices of the Morrison coalition government. This looked, and declaration, I was involved in this process, but this gives you all the detail you need to formulate a voice. Now, sure, Anthony Albanese and his government haven't told us yet exactly how much of this work they've put into practice, but you would accept surely that this would be the basis for whatever they do, whatever laws they draft.
Well, I've been saying for some time that I think that the government should respond to the Calma-Langton report. And if you read the Calma-Langton report, and I acknowledge your work in that inquiry too, Chris, you'll see that the recommendation that they made was actually you need to start with the local and regional bodies. And in government, we committed $31.8 million for the rollout of the local and regional bodies. They also suggest in that report that it'll take at least 3 years to roll out those local and regional bodies before you deal with the national body. Now, the government's obviously got a very different timetable for all of this. And that's why we're asking questions about the detail. That's why we're asking, what do they like in relation to Calma-Langton? What do they not like? What would they go down in terms of their own path here? And I think Australians need to understand that. They need to understand that before we can be presented with these questions at a referendum.